Atomic Heart, announced 5 years ago, and it's finally here. Praying it didn't get stuck in development hell. Fast forward to February 21st, 2023. It's finally out, guys. Atomic Heart was the #1 spiritual successor in people's eyes to the beloved BioShock series, a game that took you to the deep underwater paradise of Rapture and the towering flying Sky City, Columbia. To sum up the setting, imagine a 1950s, 1960s era where science fiction reigns supreme with tons of technology, similar to Fallout in terms of vibes, but you aren't American. At least I don't think you are. I'll explain later. This is set in Facility 3826 in the USSR in the prime and ripe alternate year 1955, where you play as P3 and have to stop Facility 3826 from being plunged into chaos by robots and mutants. Atomic Heart, at its core, is an FPS game that is focused on using melee weapons, guns, and your high-tech nano-polymer abilities to defeat enemies in cool and unique combos. You have your artificial intelligence right by your side to help you out in terms of navigating, using your abilities, and mass scavenging drawers, chests, and boxes. Which, might I add, that it's super satisfying when the mechanic goes smoothly. You end up accumulating loot to craft weapons, consumables, ammo, and you gain skill points you use to increase your stats, acquire more abilities. Don't worry, guys, because your skill points can be refunded, and on the point of refunding, and on top of that, salvaging weapons will give you most of your crafting materials back, all done from your psycho stalker, Nora. At the core, I want to say this game has very good combat mechanics. The comboing skills and all that are great to try out. Since you don't have to risk wasting any skill points, you are free to try out pretty much everything the game has to offer. I want to start off with saying that the bones of the combat system in this game are great. A huge part that makes the combat become more annoying than enjoyable is when you get into later areas and you're just swarmed with enemies. You can get pinned against walls. There are awesome mechanics that I think weren't really thought about, just included in the game. If you wanted an example of this, once you get into the open exploration, after a few hours of gameplay, you end up fighting your robotic enemies, and repair bots will swarm and flock to repair the recently downed bots. And unlike in the dungeons of the game, these repair bots are endless, which means that you can't really ever clear up an area to fully explore on your own in the open world. This doesn't really add anything to the game in my opinion, and also makes me think maybe they didn't realize this when they incorporated these endless hives of repair bots. Not to mention these hives also carry laser bots and camera bots, and once you get caught attacking bots from the cameras that are mounted on the maps and on these bots, you put the area under alert, where you get more bots that get dropped off to try to kill you. Honestly, this kept me from wanting to fully explore on my first playthrough as well, opting to go with the more point A to point B method. Then there's platforming and climbing. I honestly think it's really slow and ruins the pacing of going through places. Mantling up walls isn't bad, but when you have to parkour your way up a wall to grab a ledge, it personally made me regret doing the extra side areas of the map. The looting is something I love when it works, as previously mentioned, but if you go too fast, you won't open everything up because there is a full animation for opening things up. Honestly, the solution to help with this is just to have the animation play out, but not stop halfway through. Enemies come in a few varieties as well. You have the robots, plus the organic mutants that take over corpses and living people. Honestly, though, the variation becomes very stale after a while. Some early level bosses just become elite mobs later on, and some of the bots come equipped with different things as well. I think the variation could use a touch more diversity because the gameplay variation is very minimal. The mobs usually all try to rush, even the turrets that roll up and end up rushing after you for melee attacks. I'm unsure if this is a bug, but that gets us to the next part of the critiquing on the game. So I played the game on Game Pass for PC. I want to say this, some bugs I experienced were minor, but others were huge. I had one game-breaking bug that I couldn't continue on the save I was on, so if you want a list, here you go. My first 4 bugs were actually from the facility you start the game in. when you have to overheat the motors in the heat lab while you are on the lift. I just got done with it all, and as the lift returned to the default position, it clipped me off the ledge, causing me to fall to my death. The next one happened in the boiler room, where you have to cool off the boilers with the cryospheres. I had deposited the sphere and started running it down the tube, but the sphere ends up clipping through the tube. Luckily, I kept my telekinesis on the orb, or else I probably wouldn't be able to finish the puzzle, as you can only have one cryosphere in the tube at a time. Then I noticed I couldn't get 4 rounds into my shotgun, or the final round in my pistol either, meaning I had one less round of ammo ready to go in some cases. Not too horrible, just odd. The final glitch was just kind of annoying. The combat music in the game was active for the final 45 minutes of the facility. Nothing too big, and maybe there was an enemy clipped in the wall or something. My next 2 glitches are actually from the second dungeon called the Museum. One, I just dived into water and crossed. Ended up going like super fast, faster than like a fighter jet. My final glitch almost caused me to drop the game completely when I had to go grab a key for a lock at the research center. It wouldn't spawn, and there was a chunk not loaded into the map. I actually had to load from a save 2 hours beforehand and go backtrack through the museum to actually resolve the issue. I cannot express to you how much I hate catching up on a first playthrough of a new game. Instead of proceeding thoroughly, I end up rushing so I don't get all my loot, and it's just frustrating. Moving on to weapons. So by default you have the Swede, the KS-23 shotgun, and the Electro. These are the first 3 weapons you have in your arsenal. The Swede did pretty good. I don't like the spinning attack upgrade for it, and I would have rather just had the down/attack personally. The KS-23 shotgun honestly left me wanting, if I'm being honest with you, until I designated it as my robot killing weapon of choice. This is a Russian 4-gauge shotgun. It should tear stuff up by default, but if the enemies are grouped up, it seems like you are more likely to only hit one of them. The Electro might very well be the worst weapon in the entire game. I can't confirm, as I haven't used all the weapons in the game as of the review, but it is honestly a waste compared to the other energy weapons in the game. My first choice of weapons to actually build in the game was the PM, a pistol that actually has the chance to go full auto. I wasn't expecting much, but this became my main weapon when it came to killing mutants from a distance early on. The next weapon I used was the Dominator. I had high hopes for it, but the projectile speed was just too slow, and the ult fire took a very long time to charge up and was also very slow. After that, I decided to scrap my PM for the Kalash, this game's dedicated AK-47. I honestly used this gun up till the end of the game, as by that time I had been waist deep in ammo. I decided I had a close range weapon and a medium range weapon, so I went ahead and crafted the Fat Boy rocket launcher, which handles more like a grenade launcher in all seriousness that has some drop on it. I loved it. Perfect for groups, perfect for nuking bosses. The weapon after I decided to change my next weapon is the Zvezdoka. Sorry for murdering that name. I didn't use it much because I was waist deep in ammunition at that time. Next, the final weapon I had was the railgun, and oh man. Max, you get 5 shots with this energy weapon, but it packs a serious punch. I used it for an elite killer and boss cannon as well. The story is weird. In the bottom of my heart, I wanted the story to be good. I waited 5 years for this game, and right now I think the game is very predictable in its plot. The devs also spoiled one of their endings to the game in an interview some years back. I'm not saying it's bad, but at the same time, this is a very poor story in my opinion. And the reason why I say that is because I hold the BioShock series to a high standard, and I honestly expected more from Mundfish in terms of writing. Well, I guess this is where I either get a lot of likes or a ton of hate. I absolutely cannot stand most dialogue in this game. Most of it is contributed by P3. I usually never put people down when they write a character poorly, but something actually has to be addressed here. I don't think I could write a character that is as bad as P3. He's abrasive, and not for any reason. His dialogue feels forced, he makes dumb jokes, then he swears, and when he's had enough of swearing, he just resorts to his catchphrase, crispy critters. Which I feel like they were just trying to fill in the script with something other than swearing. It's absurd to think that this is what a good main character is. This is who we are in the game. It just hits too close to me being a kid and cursing under my breath, and my parents asking me what I said. I can't take it, really. I'd rather recreate One Guy, One Jar while simultaneously reenacting One Man, One Screwdriver while Gallagher smashes my balls like he smashes watermelons. There's no excuse to have P3 written like that. Funnily enough, all the other characters are actually likable. I specifically enjoyed Granny Xena, I loved Molotov, really enjoyed Charles, and oddly enough, I loved the scientist in the first facility. When it comes to the soundtrack to the game, I really love the guitar compositions from Mick Gordon. I just really wish this game had more of the guitar music from him. Sometimes fights end fast, and I'm honestly left wanting more from him. It's legendary, and Mick is a really top-notch composer in today's age of writing. I'd honestly put him up there with Sakuraba and Kota. I think honestly this game feels rushed, and it shouldn't feel rushed. The game was teased 5 years ago, and some things in the teasers aren't in the game either. I vividly remember seeing sharks, a lot more combat, what looked like a better sneak mechanic in the game. It feels completely out of left field because I had such high hopes for this game. But the writing, the plot, the annoying parts of the gameplay all make it so difficult for me to say I'm satisfied as a player. I try to think what this game really wants to be, and I know the devs have said they don't like the idea of being compared to Wolfenstein, Doom, and BioShock, but then the director went back and related Atomic Heart to BioShock. I don't understand it. When I was airing my grievances to my friends, I said, BioShock is tense and suspenseful, and it causes me to have a dreadful feeling about the next encounter. I have dreadful feelings about my next encounter in Atomic Heart because it's not tense or suspenseful. Literally, all the suspense and dread goes away due to the poor script for P3. I guess this is another thing I kind of have an issue with. I think I mentioned that I didn't think P3 was American. Well, this is an issue because the game in English gives us American accents, Balto-Slavic accents, and even Irish accents. And I know about the American defectors going to the USSR in the 50s, but there's so much more characters with American accents, and it takes me out of the immersion that is this alternate universe in 1955 USSR. Part of the reason that makes games like Stalker and Metro so immersive is their usage of accents to concrete where you are. I don't know what this game wants to be, but there's a reference to BioShock's Rapture in the game. The director said Atomic Heart will leave players with new feelings, but the only thing I truly feel after finishing this game is disappointment. If I had to give a score to Atomic Heart, I would have to give it a 5 out of 10. It nails a lot of things but falls short on so much more. Not to mention the day one patch 1.003 or 1.05, did not release on day one. It probably would have saved me some troubles I had with the game, like the glitches I mentioned above. If I were to tell you to play a few games, play BioShock 1 and 2, maybe Infinite. Then play the 2017 reboot of Prey instead if you haven't already. It's the spiritual successor to the game that inspired BioShock, known as System Shock 2. Thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you like the review, I might keep doing it. Like and subscribe, and I appreciate you all.